Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourself.
Thank you. I'm not sure why my screen is not sharing yet, but just before it comes up, I'd like to introduce myself. Some of you might know me from LinkedIn. My name is Omolara Osiyemi. I'm actually a product leader. I've worked across several leading Africa tech and international companies. Um, but one of them that everyone knows very well is MTN Nigeria, where I was a product manager for over 15 plus years. Across the time that I was there, I worked in the customer service department. I worked in finance as a revenue assurance analyst. And it was from there that I transitioned into product management in the marketing department, and I finished off my time in MTN in the mobile financial services department. Outside of that, I've also worked in sustainable energy industry. I worked in a company called Africa Solar Industry Association here in Rwanda, Kigali. And prior to that, I worked in Africa Stream as a product management consultant. During my time across these industries, what I've done is I've worked as a product strategist, I've worked in financial technology and marketing. I'm actually very passionate about transforming product ideas into products that anyone from Nigeria would probably know, and yes, those products are also quite popular across all the different operations that MTN is. Such products like Color Tunes, MTN Color Tunes. I also worked on Music Plus. I worked in the mobile money team. I developed bill payment services whilst I was a financial services product manager. And currently, I'm actually a product coach. I'm also a mentor for aspiring product managers, and I am the founder of the Product Muse company. What we do in the Product Muse is we actually coach, we mentor, and we consult for startups and other leading organizations. And that's part of what I do. And it's as a result of that passion that when I got an invitation from Meron, is that the proper pronunciation?
Yes, yes, you're right.
Yes. Okay, cool. So when I got the invitation from Meron, I actually took it up rather, to because I'm quite passionate about working with people that are aspiring to be product managers, anyone that is very passionate or is an enthusiast, a tech enthusiast, a product management enthusiast. I usually enjoy sharing this knowledge and this journey with everyone. And that's one of the reasons why I thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know that it is quite late in the different places where we're joining from. I'm here in Kigali, Rwanda, and I know it's late here as well. Excuse me. And then it's as a result of your passion that you have joined this evening. So I'm hoping that the time will be well spent for everyone joining this evening. And thank you so much, Maren, for inviting me to this wonderful platform. And I'm actually super excited and um, hoping that everyone here will also join in, this excitement. Thank you. So just 1 minute, let me share my screen. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to turn on my camera, if you need to see me, Meron, or
Yeah, yes, we would love to, of course.
okay. All right. Let's see.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
So are you
Okay.
able to share your presentation?
Okay. So I'm not
Take
sure
your time.
why.
Take your time, actually.
Okay, I'm not sure why. This is very unusual. It's interesting that it's just I tested everything and then it's now that I'm supposed to share my screen that it's not coming up. So just a minute because I thought
Sure.
that's why I
Take it.
shared with you
Oh,
earlier.
okay. Do you want me to share it for you?
Please, yes, you can share it for me. Thank you.
Okay, just a little bit. Give me some time.
So I don't waste time because time is fast spent.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, give me some time.
Sorry about that, everyone. Thank you so much. We have over 54 people here. I'm happy to see some of people from Nigeria. It's actually nice to meet you. Ruth, it's nice to meet you. Felicia, Ada, uh, I don't know whether it's Ikma, Mifta. Okay, you're a graduate student. Um, when you're putting your information on the chat, you can let us know where you're joining from and what you currently do, whether you're a student, a graduate, whether you're an aspiring product manager, a business analyst, whatever your role is, it'd be good to know. Um, and if you can just go one more step and let me know what your expectations are, why you joined, and what you're hoping to take away from tonight. Okay. Whilst Maren is trying to help with my screen, one of today's theme for this evening, because part of what the WTM Ethiopia is trying to achieve is they are having a series of workshops from design to market. And they're starting with the product management side of it. And tonight we're going to be talking about from idea to product. Pretty much is about building what people love. If you look at some products that you're very familiar with, popular products that you use all the time, I can use an example, WhatsApp, for instance. It's a product that, I mean, practically everybody uses. Everyone is pretty much on WhatsApp. And I dare say that we all love it because, thank you, Mara.
No
All
problem.
right.
I'm really sorry
Uh,
for taking the time.
no, not at all. If you can go to slide 3. I've already introduced myself. So you can actually make it a presentation, put it in presentation mode. Thank you. All right. So one of the things I was trying to explain to you about products that people love is the whole idea is in product management, before you get to the point where people love your product, you would have gone through a series of things that you would do before you get to the point where they love your product. And one of the things that you do is you have to actually first be sure that you're actually solving a problem. And that's what we call the product development mindset. What normally happens, I was using an example prior, using the example of WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a product that one of the problems that I would say it solved is the fact that people wanted to be able to connect with each other seamlessly. So, what it has done is that, irrespective of whatever country or wherever you are across the world, you are able to communicate via WhatsApp. So WhatsApp actually bridged the gap of you having to make an international code. You have to know the code to call Ethiopia from Nigeria, for instance. Then you have to actually pay roaming fees for you to be able to do all of that. But thanks to technology and thanks to products like WhatsApp, today, the globe is like one. I mean, you're joining now. Somebody could be joining from Australia, from Greenland, but the only difference is that we all have different time zones, but we are all able to connect. So that's what you know an example like WhatsApp has done for us. Of course, we also have several other examples, products like Facebook, TikTok. One thing all of these products have in common is the fact that they all solve a particular challenge or a problem. And so, one of the major ideas that are around product management. And it's just to stir up your curiosity, to also be able to challenge you if you're interested in product management. And if you're not, it's also good for knowledge bases, because considering the fact that AI is moving things and tech is evolving very quickly, irrespective of whatever industry that you are in, this kind of information will be useful to you because you now know how products, come by. So agile methodologies is one of the methodologies that are popularly adopted across. Prior to now, there was the waterfall, but because of the time that it takes, from during the product development life cycle, they now started what we call a lean methodology mindset of doing or of producing products. And that's why you have agile methodologies. Part of the things that you do when you are within this product development life cycle is to build MVPs. MVPs are the minimum viable product. I'm going to go into that shortly. I'm just going over the agenda very quickly. Um, Maren, we lost the slides, but I can still talk through it from my
Oh,
end. All
oh,
right.
how about now?
Can we all see the screen now? Is it back up? Yes, it's back.
Okay, okay,
All
I'm
right.
very sorry. Okay.
Not a problem. Thank you. All right. So, like I was saying, so you also have how you build the MVPs, then crafting strategic product roadmaps. I would explain all of that and the kind of prioritization frameworks that are available. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm just going to go over the popular ones, or yeah, the major ones. And then, of course, it's very important to understand the fact that in product management, you have to actually master stakeholder management. One of the major reasons is because you're not you don't work in silos in product management. You actually work in collaboration with cross-functional teams, meaning that you work with engineers, you work with software developers, you also work with product designers. I'm sure some of you here might be product designers, depending on the industry that you're in or what you currently do. And then in product management, you also have the essential product tools. They are called tech stack or tech tools that you use to make the work easier for you. Documentation is something that is very critical and important in product management. And I'm going to go over a couple of what we normally do in product management, and as well as the best practices. So this is our agenda. We have about less than 45 minutes. I'm going to try to go over it very quickly. Yeah. So the product development mindset, for you to think, like a product manager leader, I mentioned earlier that involves you solving problems for real people. What it means is that some of the things that you really need to have first is to have empathy as a product manager. Empathy, you also need to be able to communicate very well. The communication part has to be you communicating with your customers and also being able to communicate with your team, as well as the cross-functional team that I mentioned earlier. So customer obsession means that how do I solve a problem? Um, I used the example of WhatsApp, for instance. I'm sure there are several other instances that you have also come across that involves people solving problems. I think recently, I'm sure you're all aware of the way AI is moving very fast. Prior to now, as a product manager, you'll be required you don't need to have technical skills, but you need to understand enough of the technical aspect of product management to be able to work with the product development team. But what happened is that AI has bridged that gap. It has gotten to a point where right now you don't really need to know how to code. There's something called vibe coding. So what has happened is that it has solved a problem for another set of people that you don't need to have those skills, all you just need to do is to be able to use what they call no code tools. And that's where customer obsession comes in. I can bring it home when it comes to customer obsession, when it comes to solving problems. A typical one is prior to now, before mobile money gained worldwide adoption, there was the problem of how do people send money, to each other outside of the four walls of the bank. People who are the underserved and people who do not have proper identification could not open bank accounts, but they needed to be able to do transactions outside of the four walls of a brick and mortar bank. And that's the bridge that the mobile money came in and solved. So it started off, of course, everybody knows the story about M-Pesa and how Safaricom, started out. And, it actually took the global attention. And then, within Africa, we now started to see financial services start to play a major role. And that bridged that gap between people that were not, there were a set of people that did not have banking services done to them. And then when mobile money came into play, you can see that right now everybody has a mobile, well, not everybody, but let's just say pretty much it has covered a good number of people. So today you can actually send money. I mean, I can send money from here in Kigali to Nigeria. They can send money from Nigeria to Kigali. And all you just need to do is to use a USSD code for it. So you can see that this addressed a problem for real people. And then, all right, someone sent, a notification that distracted me. Sorry about that. All right, so another thing is you actually need to be data driven. So the thing is, all of this information that I'm mentioning, it's not head knowledge. It's not something that it's a gut feeling. It's actually backed by data. The data for the example of the mobile money I mentioned earlier, I don't have the statistics here because of time, but there was a huge number of people that were underserved. A lot of people, some up north, some maybe south or west of the country did not have access to that. But there was something that was interesting. Most people actually have access to a mobile phone, meaning that for all the people that had mobile phones, but did not have bank accounts, they were the target market. So, which means that based on data, they were able to actually serve a certain audience or a target audience of people. And then another thing that is also very important when you're thinking as a product manager is iteration. What is important is perfection is the enemy of progress. The important thing is you start. And that's, we're going to discuss that when I start talking about MVPs. So iteration means that you don't start with the very best. You're going to start with the most minimum. And then when you give this product to people and then, they come back with feedback, you now iterate. Iterate means that you work on it, you improve on it based on feedback that you have gotten, because people will tell you, oh, I'll prefer if I'm able to click on this button to have access to this, and then you go back based on, the strategy that the organization has or the goal that you're trying to achieve, and then work on it and come back until you get to what we call a product market fit. So a product market fit means that you've been able to address and solve that problem. Then I mentioned earlier about empathy. Empathy means that you actually feel, the pain or you feel the challenges that your users are experiencing. And empathy is not just for users only or customers, but it's basically also your stakeholders. We have what we call internal and external stakeholders, and also your product development team. Because the development team, you have to also consider them, the timing, the amount of work they have to put into it. When you start putting a lot of pressure on them and all of the things that you require them to do. So you also have to have empathy. So this is what, the product development mindset it requires or it entails. Meron, the next slide. Thank you. So, in terms of agile methodologies, I was talking about that earlier on. Um, we have Scrum Essentials. One of the popular or the most widely used methodology for Agile is actually Scrum. And what Scrum does is that it actually starts what we call sprints. So with the sprint, it means that when you have your idea that we mentioned that we spoke about earlier, and you have validated. So between me talking about the mindset that you need to have. Like I said, this workshop that we're having is just going to tell you high level. In between, there are a couple of other things that are there. So prior to you getting to the point where you start to have sprints and you're using the Scrum Essentials, what happens is that that idea that you have that you have to validate it. So validation of an idea is that you're sure that this idea that you have that is not a gut feeling, that you have validated through data, you found out that people are willing to pay for this product, right? That this product is not just so you can have an idea, and that your idea is something that is a good to have. But at the end of the day, it is not something that can be monetized. Will people pay for it? Is it useful enough for them that they are willing to put, their money to it? So, for instance, today, internet has gotten to a point where if you look at it, sometimes for some people they'll rather have internet than to drink a bottle of coke, for instance, because it's your way of communicating with people. So if maybe you had your last amount of money in your pocket and you had to trade off something, you might trade off having, I mean, you can easily drink water if you have to make that option, but you pay for the internet because the internet is going to do so many other things for you. So that's where you validating that people are willing to pay for your product. And so it now brings me to sprints. So part of what Scrum does is that it helps you to ensure that that idea that you have, you're able to build up on it within a time period. So most of the time, the sprints are between 2 to 4 weeks. Means that that product that you are working on, the first idea, the first that's why it's minimum. The barest that you're going to do to put it in the hands of people for them to be able to use it and give you feedback, it's between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the amount of work the software developers are going to put into it. And it also involves some of the things that you do, when you're performing Scrum or when you're using Scrum is daily stand-ups. So these daily stand-ups, what it actually entails is that what did you do? So in the mornings, depending on the time, so don't let me say morning, but it's done on a daily basis. So the teams will meet for 15 minutes on a daily basis to review what is being done, what are the things you're going to do. But I think most especially, what are the blockers? The blockers are, oh, okay, we're working towards getting this product out in 2 weeks at the very minimum. So I think the highest to be 4 weeks. But within 2 weeks, every day you're meeting with your team. The team involves the product designer, it involves the engineers, it involves a product owner, it involves the product manager. So you're meeting to evaluate and discuss on the product that you are working on. Is there anybody here that is part of a product team? If you can raise up your hand, if you're part of a product team, if you're currently Oh, Yolanda is here. Fantastic. So I'm sure she can relate with what we're talking about. So it now takes me to the sprint planning. So this sprint planning, prior to you getting all of these things done, you actually need to sit down and set what your goals are, which are called sprint goals. And you are going to commit to the deliverables, for that product. At the end of, the sprint, what happens is that everyone now comes together to do what we call a retrospective. A retrospective is that what went well, because okay, you've completed the sprint, 2 weeks is over. Sometimes it extends, I dare say, depending on the type of product. But essentially what happens is that you're going to go over what you did. Did everything go well? What were the challenges that you had? What are the things that you can now do to improve? That's where the retrospectives, come in. And all of these is during agile. If it was waterfall, so the danger within waterfall was that waterfall does not work in sprints. So waterfall is going to go through the product development life cycle, and it's not going to use 2 weeks. It's going to ensure that it goes through each one of the stages until it gets to the very end. And it could take, depending, 3 months, 9 months, depending on what you're doing. As against um, the agile methodology that is going to use the 2 weeks to quickly come up with you know a prototype. And that prototype is now what you're now going to refine and iterate on to get to, a refined product that you're going to put out there for customers. Meanwhile, we also have an approach called Kanban. Kanban is also part of the agile methodology, but the difference with Kanban is that it uses boards. And another thing is it does not work in sprints. So what happens is that you're going to be able to visualize your workflow. But another thing that it does is that it works with a limit in terms of work that it's being done. With Kanban, for instance, you are able to still do all what you're doing, as is similar to a sprint, but the difference is that while sprint is 2 weeks, Kanban is not 2 weeks. It's just going to go on like that until it completes, the process. But the thing is, some teams, depending on the size of the organization and depending on what you're trying to achieve, some of them actually find Kanban useful to what they're doing, and others will just continue with Scrum, pretty much. The next slide. There are other methodologies. There's also the lean methodology, but for the purpose of tonight's workshop, we're just taking two because of time. All right, so I mentioned earlier about an MVP. So today, for instance, if you have an idea, and I dare say we all do have ideas, and you want to build up on that idea, one of the things that you can do is to develop what we call a minimum viable product, meaning that you want to test that idea and be sure that it is workable, it is something that is going to work. And that is you putting it out there into the hands of, it could be your family, it could be your friends, people that will be able to give you feedback when they test it. What happens is that it is the very basic version of your product. You don't need to put all the bells and whistles. It doesn't have need to have any fancy thing. It just needs to be able to work. So an example is you can build an app. The important thing is that that app, you can have access to it either on the Play Store or Apple Store. Customers are able to log in, and then you are able to onboard them as a starting point, depending on the idea that you have behind it. So that is what the minimum viable product is. And then at the end of the day, what happens is that when that product gets out there, you're going to get feedback from customers. You're going to get feedback from users. And based on whatever it is that they give you as feedback, you now go back, iterate, and ensure that all of those things are now included in the product. And before, you still refine it before you now give a final product to, the customers out there. Depending on the type of product, you could actually have what we call a soft launch. A soft launch means that you're going to be limiting the number of people that have access. So that's why you hear people saying that this is a better or beta part of the product, meaning that it's only limited to a certain number of people, not everybody. Some people even do what we call a wait list. The reason why is that they want to be able to see how this product is going to perform before they now put out, the main part of the product with everything that is in it. But they're not going to start out like that. That's why it's the minimum. Why do we build an MVP? Pretty much what you do is you use it to learn very fast. You learn all of the things that the product is able to do and how people are actually accepting that product. Another thing is that you fail smart. Failing smart means that once it fails, you know and understand what has failed about it, and you are able to quickly turn around what you need to update or change about it. Improvements come very quickly, and that's why it's called agile. You're moving very fast. It's with speed. You're not going to sit on it and wait. It's you responding and reacting based on the feedback that you receive. What makes it a good MVP is that it addresses the user problem first. Then you're able to test key assumptions. So the key assumptions are the fact that what are the things that you're trying to do with it? Those are the assumptions, things that your thought process, you're able to test it to be sure that, oh, these things, if you say that if I click on it, it's supposed to take me to another page. That's one of the assumptions. Then you are able to deliver value immediately. I mean, there are some products that you work on that it's interesting that before it goes live, people are already waiting. Then you already know that that idea has been tested and validated. And it means that people are benefiting from it. It is solving their problem. That's the reason why it delivers value immediately. Then another thing is that when you have an MVP, it creates what we call feedback loops. The feedback loops means that you're able to gather feedback and use that feedback to improve on that product. The development strategy around MVP ensures that you identify the things that are the riskiest. One of the things about it is when you are a product manager, some of the things that you need to look at is how feasible is what you're working on. Is it usable? Another thing is you have to test the risk. What kind of risk are you actually envisaging that this particular product, when it gets in the hands of customers, what would it do? So, for instance, if it's a financial services product, some of the risks that you're thinking about is the information that people are providing out there. What kind of risk in terms of fraud? You know, are people going to be exposed to, particularly because they are going to be putting out their personal information and other things like that. Another thing is that you build only what is needed to test. Don't forget that we're talking about building MVPs right now. So you only build, what you think that is required. I mentioned earlier that you don't need to put all the bells and whistles yet. It's just supposed to be the minimum, the barest minimum that you are able to test, ensure that everything works before you now start adding all the things that you feel people actually are requesting for or is required. You also need to ensure that you have what we call matrix. Matrix are you being able to track what you're not going to just put out a product there. You want to know how many people are using it, how many people have adopted it, are they first time users? When they use it, how many people are coming back? Who are the repeat customers? So these are some of the things that you need to, at the very beginning, have a structure in place for. Then also have a plan for your iteration. So how do you plan on improving on it? When the feedback comes back, how do you work with your team to ensure? Because don't forget that it's not just one product. You might be working in a large organization and it could be a startup. So depending on the size of the organization, you should have a plan as to how you iterate on products. I want to understand that, or I want to believe everybody understands iteration. So an iteration means that how do you put those things that you want to do? How do you make it happen? That's an iteration. So when something comes to you, how do you work on it, ensure that it is ready, and then you put it out there? So the next slide, Mira. Good. So here we're talking about roadmaps. Like I said, everything here that we're talking about is high level in terms of us moving from idea to products that people love. So these are things that are done behind the scene. For anyone here that is a product manager, this is maybe what we'll call a masterclass. But if you're new to product management and you have been hearing a lot of things, then maybe some of these things that I'm talking about, is not entirely new, but you're just going to be getting a clearer vision as to what it is. So some of the things that you need to put in place is to have a roadmap. So for instance, if you're actually planning to take a journey, um, I'm not sure if a journey is a good example, but let me say, for instance, you at the beginning of the year had a goal that you actually have put in place that by the end of 2025, so I'll use maybe reading. So maybe at the beginning of the year, you decide that, oh, I want to read 52 books in 52 weeks of 2025. All right. I always like to tell people that have ambitious goals that a goal like reading 52 books in 52 weeks, is it something that is viable? Because if you are someone that did not open any book in 2024, what are the chances that you can read 52 books in 2025? So a roadmap is you now saying that, okay, how do I plan to achieve reading this number of books in 2025? And that's where you now have your fundamentals. For your product, what you want to do is what kind of vision do you have for it? And then it's not just that, just your vision only. What you want to do is you want to be able to put, this product in a way that it's going to be achievable for you to achieve it. Because if you recall what I said, if you are using yourself as someone that wasn't reading books before, you now want to read books in 2025, then you need to have a proper plan. That plan is this roadmap. This roadmap is going to show how you plan to achieve it. But in this instance, we're talking about a live product. It is not just, although a roadmap can be applied to any area of your life, both personal and professional. So here, you're going to have time. You have to break it down into different ways that is going, because you're not going, the roadmap is not for you personally. The roadmap is for even your stakeholders, because recall that when customers bring feedback from when we're talking about our MVPs, it means that you want to know exactly how those feedback that they've provided, where does it sit in your plan? That's your roadmap. And that means that you're not going to be thinking about output. Output means that you're just going to be giving those things that you want to improve on. No, it's not about that. It's about outcomes. Outcomes are, what do you plan to achieve? It is not just you adding more features to that product, but it is what the features are going to be able to achieve. So it means that when you add anything to your product, you're expecting it to work the way it should, so that when customers use that product, they're going to come back. Those are repeat customers. Not that when your product goes out there, people use it once and they don't come back again. So you've achieved you putting, improvements on it, but that's, you're not stopping there. So you're not measuring yourself based on those outputs. So that's where your roadmap comes in. All of these things need to be defined. You also need to be flexible, because guess what? You can decide that you've already put up your roadmap and you have said that, oh, the product will be ready, the final product will be ready by June, for instance. But something happens in May. There's a market disruption by a competitor. You have to be open to adjusting your roadmap, that based on June might not work again. Maybe you might need to move it closer to May, or based on how you are reacting to the market, maybe June is not going to work, it's going to be July. So you have to be flexible enough when you're preparing your roadmap. Another thing about roadmaps, there are different types of roadmaps. Some roadmaps are theme based, meaning that it's based on a group, or it's based on problems or goals. So, depending on your organization, your business goals also determine the type of roadmaps that you actually work on. And it could be milestone driven. 52 weeks, like I said, 52 books. So it might be that maybe you guys have a plan of rolling out maybe 6 products by the end of 2025. So you're going to build your roadmap around those products. And it could be opportunity focused, meaning that sometimes, like I said, the market can determine, the type of products that you're working on and how you actually iterate on those products. And that's where the opportunity focused comes in. Another thing is communication is actually very important when you're building your roadmaps, because the roadmap is not for you. It's not you looking at it every morning and thinking, oh, okay, I'm doing very well. Okay, by September, I should be on my fourth product. No, communication means that you're able to with your different stakeholders for them to see that the features that they're expecting improvement on. Because when you get requests, you are not the only one. You are the product manager, but requests can come from sales, because sales are the ones trying to market the product. Marketing is the one that is getting it in the hands of customers. And then you also have customer support or customer experience. They are the ones that are customer facing. So they all have a stake in your product. So they all come back with different feedback from customers. But depending on we're going to talk about prioritization next. So depending on how that product is going to be beneficial to customers, that's where communication comes in. You must be able to share with every stakeholder that, oh, okay, this your feature that you want me to work on this product. This is where it sits in the product, because it's very important for us. It means that maybe it's going to take us closer to our revenue target for Q2, for instance. So those are things that you must be able to communicate. Then another thing is that there are executives that are involved in this and business outcomes. They are very interested in the roadmap, because like I said, it is the value that you are not just giving the customer, but also the value you are providing to your organization. Your organization is not putting out products there just because of putting out products. They are in the business to actually make money. So at the end of the day, you want to be sure that the executives that are going to be putting the resources or approving the resources, for these products to be built, they also are carried along in your roadmap. Another thing is sometimes you have teams and you also have delivery milestones. What kind of milestones are you working towards, and how are you planning to achieve them? They will also go into your roadmap. There's also technical and architecture. Technical and architecture means that the kind of resources that you're going to be using to actually achieve, these products. So the technical aspect of it and the architecture that is required to build it. If it's a complex one, it will actually affect, the roadmap. But if it is not so complex, if it doesn't really require maybe a major platform, maybe you are building from scratch. If you're not building from scratch, for instance, if maybe you're buying or you're using in-house, and in-house means that you're using your technical team within, those kind of things will actually also play out in your roadmap. Wow, time is going very fast, but let me see how quickly we can cover. If you are uh, getting value from this, please can you give a thumbs up so that I'm sure that you're being carried along. Thank you. Thank you. You can start getting your questions ready. Good. So the next slide. Thank you. All right. I mentioned earlier about prioritization when I was talking about roadmaps, because they kind of work hand in hand. There are several prioritization methods. There's Kano, there's Moscow, there's Rice, there's value versus effort. But for the purpose of tonight, and because time is going very quickly, I'm just going to discuss the Moscow method. The Moscow method, really, what it tells us is, so what the Moscow is about is that it's must have. That means when you're prioritizing your product, you want to be sure that the framework that you are using is based on the product, the type of product that you are working on. Meaning that there are some products. Earlier on, when I mentioned, when we're talking about roadmap, the reason why you're prioritizing is that everyone that is bringing their feature requests are from different teams. And when you're putting together your roadmap, you want to be sure that you prioritize it based on their importance. So there are some products that when you are working on the features, they have to have this particular feature. It's non-negotiable because without that feature, it's pretty much not having a product. But if you have that feature, you are guaranteed that customers will get value, they're able to use it. So, an example is I'll use our example about mobile money again. So, when you're building the mobile money, you want to be sure that when a customer sends money to another customer, so for instance, Meron is sending money to me here in Kigali. I'm able to receive the money. If I send money, she's able to receive, right? It is non-negotiable that the peer-to-peer aspect of it works. So if that feature is a feature, if it's a P2P feature that is being sent by maybe the sales team for them to be able to sell it, then that means it's a must-have. A should have is important, but it is not critical. So in terms of the criticality, Moscow says that should have. Yes, we can have it, but it is not the most important. The one that is the most important is the must have. Another thing is you could actually have, that's the could have. It's desirable. Would love to have it. So, for instance, it would be nice, for you to be able to to get notifications, for instance, but that's actually important in mobile money. So that would not be a could have, but something that is desirable for you to actually use if resources permit. So it means that if you're building your product, for instance, it could be color, it could be sound, depending on what product it is. What it's just saying is that there are some things that you would love to have, but it's not very important. It's not critical. And then there are some that you don't really need to have them for that product to be released. So, for instance, like I said, it's just very basic for you to be able to have peer-to-peer transactions. You must be able to use a USSD, for instance, as a starting point because everybody has minimum any phone, whether it's a feature phone or a smartphone, can actually do that. So it's a must have for you to be able to use USSD. Yes, it is good for you to be able to use an app, for instance, but it's important, but it's not critical, right? It gets critical if your target audience, where you find them, is only on the app. Then that means that it becomes a must have. But if your target audience are just the bottom of the pyramid, everyday people that use phones, then it's important but not critical. So I hope you understand what the Moscow method is. The RISE framework pretty much is reach, your impact, your confidence, and your effort. What this means is that how many users are you going to be impacted in terms of reach? Like I mentioned, depending on your audience, the people that you're targeting, right? One thing that is important is how would this framework, this prioritization, how do you put them in the order of importance? So if, for instance, your market or your target audience, they are on TikTok, for instance, so that means you can only, maybe not only reach them, but the majority of them can be reached on TikTok. Then that means that you're going to use this framework, to prioritize them. The impact means that how much does it matter to these users? It matters to them that I'm only on TikTok or I'm mostly on TikTok, for instance. Then that means you should find me on TikTok. You are not going to go and build and put it on Facebook or target them on Facebook when you're supposed to be finding them on TikTok, for instance. Then confidence means that how certain are you sure about the success of it? Then the final one is how much work is required. So if you're going to be using your RISE framework to prioritize based on the type of product you're working on, this is what you are now going to use. So a RISE framework means that there's a score at the end of the day. You're going to multiply the reach by the impact and confidence, and then you now divide by the effort. At the end of the day, the score is what you are now going to use. So for each of the feature, when you use this mathematical formula, you now use it to rate, all these different features. So at the end of the day, the one with the highest score is the one that you are going to prioritize at the top, and you follow like that, which is different from the Moscow. The Moscow tells you, oh, this is non-negotiable, this one is important but not critical, like that. And then there's one other framework you can also use for prioritization, which is the value versus the effort matrix. Recall when I started out prioritization, I tried to explain to you that when you're using this framework, it depends on the product and your audience, where you find them, that will determine the framework that you're going to use. So you're going to use the one, you can't use all three, and it's not one size fits all. It is based on your peculiar circumstance. So when it comes to value versus effort, it means that there are some quick wins, meaning that these are things that have minimal effort, but it has very high value, but you're not going to put a lot of work. It means when you want to do this, you don't probably need maybe external effort. It could be that your internal development team can quickly work on it. But what makes it very critical is the fact that it gives you very high value with a, you don't really need to put a lot of work. Another one is that when you have strategic initiatives, for instance, they have very high value, and then they also have high effort, meaning that the amount of work that you are going to put into it is a lot, but at the same time, it's going to give you a lot of value. So you can also look at it that way. So at the end of the day, that's also going to come at the top. Some are just minimal work, and then, but the value is not a lot. So you're not really going to prioritize them very high. And then time. Time means that you don't want to waste so much effort. And at the end of the day, it's not going to give you so much value. So in terms of this, don't forget that prioritization is based on you trying to know which one of the features you want to add to your minimum viable product, that you're taking to market when people have brought their feedback. So when they bring this feedback, how do you want to manage this feedback? Everybody's feedback, if you're in product management and you're on this call, know that everybody in the different teams, they prioritize their own feature as urgent. Everybody is saying, oh, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. For you to be able to work on that, you need to be able to show them and communicate and say, oh, based on how we are prioritizing, is because this thing has low effort, but it's going to give us high value. If we just do this minimal work, we're guaranteed that we should get 10% of our revenue in 2 weeks, something like that. The next slide. Okay, Mara. Okay, cool. So yeah, stakeholder management. So for stakeholder management, I had mentioned earlier, in product management, you don't work in silos. As a product manager, you're going to be working with several teams. Your users are your stakeholders. So what I mean by your users are your stakeholders is one very important thing is prior to you even starting your product, when you are validating your idea, you would have done what we call a market research. It means that you're going to be talking to your users. In product management, you continuously talk to users. The reason why is because you actually get value and feedback from them. So that's what I meant by stakeholders. But in addition to that, they are not only your stakeholders, you also have, excuse me, so you also have the executives. So the executives are your CEO, your CFO, your COO, even your CPO. Your CPO is Chief Product Officer. So these are part of the executives. In some organizations that are large organizations, you also have board of directors, but not all the time do they play a major role here, but they are also stakeholders because the outcome of whatever product you're putting out in the market actually also affects or impacts on them. So, in addition to that, what normally happens when it comes to stakeholder management is stakeholders have, excuse me, they have a stake. It means that for instance, before you start out, you need approval. There's something called a go or no go, meaning that are we going to proceed? Are we not going to proceed? You have to be able to communicate with your stakeholders to tell them if we are proceeding. It could be that they might look at it and tell you that, well, what we want at the end of the day, if we want a product that is going to give us 100% return on investment, if we invest this type of money, we want to be sure that we're going to get back this money very quickly. So what you do is you actually do what we call a stakeholder mapping. One of the things where you do is you're going to see how powerful each one of these stakeholders is in terms of their input, or in terms of how, this plays out for them. And that's where our interest matrix, this identifies the people who calls the major shots. Don't forget that you are just the product manager. At the end of the day, there are some higher powers that actually also give the go ahead when it comes to the product. So it means you have to know how to communicate. I mentioned earlier that it's important as a product manager for you to be able to speak the language of your stakeholders. The way you speak with your engineer is going to be different from the way you're going to speak to your chief product officer. You have to learn how to tailor your communication to your different stakeholders. So if you're going to be talking to someone in sales, for instance, you have to speak the language of sales or speak the language of marketing to them. The reason why is because the salesperson is going to be representing you in the market, is the one taking your product to market. Meanwhile, the marketing team, they are the ones that are going to be crafting the kind of message that customers understand, that is going to ensure that customers buy your product. So it means that all of these people in the stakeholder mapping, what you do is you know how to talk to them. At the end of the day, you have to build a good relationship before you need them. Meaning, before your product even goes live, before you launch it, you are talking to sales, and you have a cordial relationship with them, and you speak a mutual kind of language. Same with marketing. You also have customer success. They are the ones that ensure that how your product is being viewed or is being seen, in the market. The feedback loop, I mentioned that earlier as well. It's very important that when it comes to new users, right, you actually test that your product is usable. Um, I'd mentioned about interviews. You do interviews, and then analytics is something we're going to talk about in 1 or 2 slides more. Uh, Mara, how many more minutes do I have? Hello, Mara.
Feel,
I just
feel
noticed
free to
that.
continue. No
uh,
worries. Feel free to continue.
I can continue. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Sorry, I did not know that. Time was fast spent. Sorry, I mentioned earlier that some of these things are not things that we can cover within 1 hour. I'm just trying to ensure that I give you guys a detailed explanation of some of them, and that's where this feedback loop comes in. When it comes to feedbacks, right? You also have feedback to leadership, as well as engineering, sales, and support. All of these are stakeholders. And the reason why is because for leadership, for instance, an OKR is a metric, is a way of measuring, what you are achieving. It's objective and key results. What happens is that you have to have defined what you're trying to achieve, what your objective is, and what are the results that you are looking to achieve. So that's where leadership is interested in. What leadership is going to be looking out for instance, is different from what engineering is going to be looking out for. So for leadership, for instance, they want updates. They want to be sure that, oh, we're going to market in June. If we go to market in June, our objective is that we want to respond to a competitor, for instance, and we want to improve on what we're doing, which is agreed. But what is going to be the result at the end of the day? The result is that maybe that competition maybe has taken 30% of the market share, and you want to take 5% of it. What are the things that you need to put in place? Sorry. Thank you. So that's what leadership is interested in. For users, for instance, users want to be sure that they can use the product. That's why when you interview them, you don't preempt them by putting words in their mouth. What you want to do is you just want to find out how are they finding the product, so you leave it open for them to give you feedback, because it's in that feedback you're able to understand maybe it's addressing their pain points, it's doing what they want it to do. And at the end of the day, you now analyze it. For sales and support, the reviews that customers give shows them that some of the things that they have promised, because what salespeople do is they promise customers. Sometimes they go and overpromise, and hopefully, they don't put you in a position where you under deliver. Because when sales will tell anything just to sell, right? So that's why you have to have a good relationship with them and ensure that when you are building your roadmap, you let them know all of the things that you plan to achieve is in that roadmap, so that they will not come tomorrow and tell you that, oh, we want the product to have wings. Meanwhile, that was not part of what was agreed. So you should carry them along. That's where the communication and stakeholder management comes in. And at the end of the day, um, it ensures that you share goals. This is where we are going. We're all going along this road. This is our destination. They understand where you're going. Ensure that you make use of data. That's why product managers are data driven. Another thing is that, you have to show the different options that are available. It's not just about providing problems, but it's about showing the different options to solving it. That's the reason why you are the product manager. Know exactly when and what to escalate, and not compromise. So sometimes if you go and compromise and say, oh, don't worry, we should be able to deliver by the end of next month, don't forget that you also have engineers and designers. So it's not ultimately yours decision at the end of the day. So you have to know exactly what to go and promise, so that you don't go and under deliver and get yourself shot in the foot. So we'll be rounding up very soon. Next slide. Right. So in terms of tools, I mentioned earlier, uh, it's about collaboration when it comes to product management. I didn't include Slack here because I was working on, what I was given. But Slack is a very major tool that most product management teams use. It's actually good for collaboration. But outside of that, you also have Notion. Notion is a document or a platform that allows you to do so many things. Most of the time, it's collaborative in the sense that you can put your document there and it helps everyone to actually work on it at the same time. You just say, oh, don't worry, I would add you to, my Notion board, and then everybody works on it. So on Notion, you have wikis, you have project plans, you have templates. There are so many things that you can do on Notion. So that's why Notion is one very popular and common tool that product managers use. Trello is another one. Trello is more visual because it helps you to manage tasks. And then, that way, everyone on your team is able to see where they are at in terms of, oh, okay, this is where we are project on this project, this is what we're doing, this is who is responsible. You are able to track it. It's actually quite easy to use. Maybe after this call, if you've not heard of Trello before, or if you're curious, you just go on YouTube, you're able to see and watch videos on what Trello looks like. And I think you can even actually download it and try it out. It actually has a free to use feature that you can actually use as well. So Jira is actually very, very important for a lot of organizations because it helps you, with the sprint management. We talked about sprint earlier on when we are talking about agile methodology, and that's where Jira comes in. It's actually something that a lot of project managers and product managers make use of because, it helps you, to track all the issues. So I'm sure, for people that are product managers here, of course, you talk about, oh, I got how many Jira tickets, because on Jira, you're able to log the tickets or the features that you want, to work on. And that is what the engineers use, to start building and iterating on your products. And of course, product board is one other tool that some organizations are using because it actually helps you, with all these ideas, everything that we're talking about, product board is able to do it for you. the road mapping, the prioritization, how to manage your ideas. Everything is there. It's like a one-stop shop for product managers. And then Miro and Figma, when you are building up on your idea, it's kind of like a whiteboarding tool. It helps you to build what they call a wireframe. So a wireframe is that you are able to visualize what it is that your idea is supposed to look like. Figma and Miro can help you to do that. And it's mostly used by product designers, but it's also good for you as a product manager to be able to, come up with, what, especially if maybe you are working on what we call a user flow, or you're working on your customer journey from the point where where your customer interacts with your product, up until the time where you launch the product. That kind of thing is where Myra and Figma come in. So when it comes to analysis or analytics and testing, you also have mixed panel and amplitude. These platforms are very good for tracking user behavior. They are able to tell you once you are on that platform and you're making use of it, it shows you patterns when it comes to your users, and you are able to track the behavior. And based on that, you can make informed decisions. When it comes to what they call heat maps, you have Hotjar. Hotjar allows you to know the areas, specific areas, and how, the customers are performing in that area. And then Optimizely helps you with what we call A/B testing. So A/B testing is actually you trying to find out how your product is performing. You can actually do that by actually having two cohorts of say for instance, if you do two different types of messaging and you send this to maybe 1,000 customers, and you send the second one, a B one, to another set of customers, the behavior actually, the outcome helps you to make informed decisions. It allows you to know how those customers interact, differently, and then you are able to make decisions. Some of these tools are based on team size. So for startups, for instance, some startups will use Notion and Trello and Mixpanel. And then for some medium-sized organization, they could actually be using Jira, Product Board, and Amplitude. Don't forget that it's also based on resources. Startups might not have the flexibility of having that much resources to commit to certain platforms. So as a result of that, they'll use the ones that are within the budget that they have, the resources that they have, but will still deliver. Okay, so as we round up very shortly, I'm sure you'll hear all the time that product managers work on what we call PRDs. A PRD is actually a product requirement document. What it does is that when you have this your idea, this document is what everybody is going to have access to, because it defines what your problem is, what the user problem is and what they need. Then inside there, you're going to actually define what you feel are the metrics. So those metrics are, for instance, revenue is a metric, for instance. They call it maybe daily acquisition of users, DAU is a metric. So all those things are things that are put into this document, and you set what we call a key performance index. Those are KPIs. So those KPIs are you measuring yourself based on all of the things that you want to do. So your user journey and your workflows, user journey is from the point where a customer interacts or interfaces with your product, up until the end, that product, they start to use it. So what it means is that how you onboard your user is a user journey. So once the person clicks on maybe an app, uh, puts in their information, how they use it, and then how they get value from it. So those are things that are in the PRD, as well as technical considerations. What are the things that technically the teams are going to be doing? This is not limited, because in your PRD, you have your user personas, who are the people that are going to be using it, your target audience, and all of that. So the timelines, all of these will be in this document. So, like I said, this is just a high level. But something that happens is in sprint, you also have what we call a user story. A user story is that what is this user, right? If this product gets in the hands of the user, how will this user interface with it, and how would it benefit the user, meaning that as a so for instance, what is the type of user? So these are things that you have to actually also put in the document. So as a what's the type of user? I want to be able to perform this type of action so that this is what I achieve. And then at the end of the day, what happens is that you now have what we call an acceptance criteria, where the conditions are set that will make this satisfiable to that customer. So if you want, you can just check out what a user story structure looks like. It will tell you, what that user is expecting at the end of the day if they use your product. So I'm rushing now. uh, Meron, sorry about that. So if you have any questions, you can start putting it in, the chat box as we round up. I know I talked about matrix earlier, so I'm not going to uh, um, dive too deeply into it. Matrix, the different types of matrix that you can have is your acquisition matrix. Cost of acquisition means is CAC, meaning that what does it cost you, to be able to acquire one customer. And sometimes conversion rate. It all depends on the type of product that you're putting out there. Your product determines the type of matrix that you're going to be using. Another thing about it is that that's for acquisition. So that is when you're acquiring a user. Another thing is activation. Activation means is that what's the time that is going to take for it to be valuable, to that customer. Another thing could be onboarding completion, meaning that how many users are we able to onboard completely? So sometimes some users can come on board and then somewhere along, the flow, they drop off. That can be a problem because, you start to notice that, people are not completing, this onboarding. Then that means there's a problem. Sometimes you have to revisit your user flow to see where they are dropping off and then work on it. So these are some of the things that you identify when you work on your product matrix. For instance, when it comes to retention, you want to know how many people are leaving. Sometimes when a new product comes up, a lot of people come in. It's like opening the door. A lot of people come in. But sometimes people come in through the front door and then go out through the back door. Then that means there's a problem. You want to be sure that why are people churning? Why are they leaving? And then of course, how do you find out? It could be the daily average number of users. So on a daily basis, if today the number of people are 1,000, then tomorrow it reduces to 800. The day after, it reduces to 600. Then you know that there is a problem because you're able to track it using your DAU. The MAU is the monthly one. It's like DAU, but the thing is that on a monthly basis, you want to track. That's why sometimes you do what we call month on month. So last month, if maybe our total monthly users is maybe 100,000, then this month is 120, then you know that you are growing. If this month it becomes 80, then there's a problem. So you are checking through using the retention. Of course, revenue, ARPU, your ARPU is your average revenue per user. It's very important. You want to know how much each user is contributing, to your revenue at the end of the day. And then of course, there's lifetime value. Customers that are on this platform, for the long haul. So, for instance, we all use WhatsApp. I want to imagine that it's a lifetime value because maybe you are not ready to leave WhatsApp for an alternative. There are other alternatives, but then I think one of the most valuable ones with WhatsApp, for instance. Of course, referral. NPS is net present score. So if today we're having this conversation here on in this workshop, would you recommend this program to somebody else? What was the benefit that you got from it? That is what an NPS is. So if you're able to score it maybe between 1 to 10, and you give it a score of 8, for instance, to you, I benefited a lot from it. And the next program that WTE is going to be hosting, you tell your friends, oh, you don't want to miss it. It's the part 2 of the series that is ongoing. So that's where your NPS comes in. So how to use this matrix effectively involves you having dashboards that you monitor on a daily basis, and that's where amplitude, mix panel, such tools will help you to do. You're able to monitor the dashboard. Sometimes you might buy or acquire a particular platform that has all the different dashboards that would give you access to all this information. The information such as the weekly trends, monthly and quarterly trends are all on the platform. Next slide. All right. So we're rounding up. I think after this, you can bring in your questions. So as a product manager, one product management book or resource that I always recommend for anyone, whether you're a product manager or not, is Inspired. So people like to call Inspired the product management Bible. It's actually a book by a product management leader, and they always say he's the godfather of product management. It's called Matty Kagan. You can check him out. So a book by Inspired. Inspired covers almost everything we've discussed here and more. And then there's another one called Escaping the Build Trap. Earlier during the course of this conversation, I had mentioned outcomes over output. So output means that you're just, working on features. For instance, you're working on it. So in your mind, you want to put all the bells and whistles. Everything should be on that product. Well, no, it's supposed to be based on outcome. So when you want to find out about people that are stuck in what we call a build trap means that you are just building, you're not measuring or focusing on the outcome and the value you're going to be providing to customers. That is where this escaping the build trap comes in. Melissa Perry did a fantastic job explaining this and much more in her book. And then there's also the Lean Product Playbook. The Lean Product Playbook also tells you about outcomes and output as well, but then it goes a bit further to tell you about what we call the problem space and the solution space. It has a lot of things that I can't go into details, but I think that you should pick it up. Any one of these books is actually very valuable. There are newsletters that I actually enjoy reading. They tell you so many things. Lenny's newsletter is one of them. Then we have Power. All of the things that we've discussed today, all the templates that you're looking for, book recommendations, videos to watch, how to break into product management. Powell is your guy. And then we have Akash. Akash is the product group guy. Everything you want to know about product management, Akash is your guy. His newsletters are very informative. You want to look out for him on LinkedIn, follow him, and then also subscribe to his newsletter. And subscribe to any of these newsletters. They are free anyway. You don't need anything to subscribe to them. And then communities to join, just the same way you've joined this community. I would recommend joining, of course, Mind the Product School. Product School has so many resources, templates, and all of that. And then they also host different events. Some are online for people who cannot be there physically. I actually think that you benefit a lot, from joining those communities. And I'm sure the next slide would be wrap. Yes. And thank you so much for your time. I know time is fast spent, and I'm sorry I took a bit more than expected. Thank you so much. If you want to connect with me, if you are not previously connected with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can see the link on the screen for where to find me. I usually respond in my DMs. I'll accept. And if you have any questions, anything that is not clear to you, you can find me there. In addition to that, I mentioned earlier that I am the founder of the product Muse. It's actually a product consulting, coaching, and mentorship platform. I currently am hosting what we call an accountability pod. What we do there is if you've been struggling with achieving your goals since beginning of the year, or you're just looking for a community or like-minded people that you can actually join for you to be able to achieve those goals, then you want to be part of our accountability pods program. The cohort 3 is starting in the coming week. If you check my profile, you find the details there to actually join. And if what you're looking for is someone that can coach and mentor you, if you check my profile, you can also find access to that. I mean, like I said, you can see my LinkedIn profile there. So on my profile, all of the things that we do at the Product Muse, you'll have access to it, and then you're able to get in touch with me. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much, Meron, for having me here this evening. I really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions for me now, um, I'm open to having those questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omolara. This is incredible. Thank you for sharing such a clear and helpful flow of the product management process. It was really valuable for me, also for the audience, I believe. Uh, I want to see hands where people get some insights from this session. How did you feel
Thank you.
about this program? Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. So, if you have any question, I will take 3 or 4 questions and then we will wrap up. Okay, I saw Maklit
Okay.
first. You can unmute yourself and you can speak.
I
Maklit,
can't hear anything.
um,
Hello, we can't hear you.
I thought I saw a hand.
She
Okay,
actually raised her hand, but yeah.
yeah, right.
Anybody else?
Okay, anybody else?
There is a question on the chat.
On the chat.
Okay,
Okay. Oh, okay. I did not scroll down. Okay. Thank you so much, Ida. Okay. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, Ruth. Okay, so Gabriela says, with regards to extensive, what's one mistake you see aspiring product managers make? Okay, one major mistake that I see is aspiring product managers always look at the title and not the work. So most of the time, one of the things that they are particular about is the product management title, the product manager. Well, it's a little bit beyond that. It's about you being able to solve the problem. It's about you being able to think. There's the product management mindset and product thinking. You know, you need to also have all of that. You have to also think about another thing that they actually discount is transferable skills. So, for instance, I'm not sure how many people here are not in product management, but guess what happens? Product management as a field is acceptable for whichever field that you're in. So I've seen people who are lawyers who have actually transitioned successfully into product management, meaning that they're able to bring the skills. Of course, we all know that as a lawyer, you should be able to communicate very well. Lawyers also have empathy as well. So, you know, these are things that are major that you can bring in. So, another thing, in addition to them always focusing on title, is them forgetting that they have transferable skills. So they should actually focus on the skills that they are bringing in from prior experience. So before you decide to become a product manager, if you were in marketing, for instance, don't forget when we're talking about cross-functional teams, remember that marketing is one of the cross-functional teams. I, for instance, I actually transitioned from finance as a revenue assurance analyst. I transitioned into product management, and you know, I brought in skills that I actually had from finance into product management. So what people should actually think about is the skills that they have that are called transferable skills, and they can bring it into product management, and you know, they will thrive effectively with that. I hope that helps you, Gabriela. I think I actually mentioned 2 mistakes, not one. And then Naomi says that in the prioritization framework, what are the measurement units for reach, impact, confidence, and sorry about that. The unit. What do you mean? I'm trying to understand what you mean by the unit. Uh,
Um, Naomi, if you can unmute yourself and explain your question, please.
So you said we could calculate the prioritization using the RICE formula. I was wondering
okay.
how you measure the reach, impact, confidence, and effort to accurately calculate the RICE formula score.
Oh, okay. So in terms of value, as in one, two, three, four, five,
Yes.
like that. Okay, I think there's actually a structure, but because I mean, when I was putting it together, I should have actually have included it in the document. But I was trying to I was trying to make time because I was actually quite tied up earlier in the week. I actually have it here. I will share with you just 1 minute. I actually have it on my, I'll see if I can just put it up shortly whilst somebody else is coming up with their own question. I actually have it here. Sorry about that. Any other question, comments? Try to, I'm just going to share my screen now. Is there any other question that I'm missing?
So, how do you
To that. Then, Gabriela, in answering your question, for the right, was it Gabriela that asked? No, for Naomi, sorry. For the rice, what normally happens is it depends. You are the one that determines what the measurement, the unit is. It depends on what you're trying to score or achieve. So if your matrix that you are using, the unit of your matrix is what's going to determine, the value. So you are going to be the one to it could be on a scale of 1 to 5 for your reach, or it could be on a scale, so the impact could be 1 to 10. So 10 meaning that maybe you give it the highest, and then one being the lowest, that kind of thing. So that's what you're going to use. And at the end of the day, don't forget that you actually first multiply your reach, impact, and confidence. I think, no, sorry, you add, then you multiply by effort. So you are the one that determines, the unit, depending on what you're trying to achieve. And then that's what, when you compound everything together, it gives you the value. The value you get is now what you're going to use to rate them, you know, uh, the one with the highest value, depending on, what that feature is. So that particular feature to you, if at the end of the day, the value is 10, then maybe that's the highest. Then the next feature might be 9, or maybe 8, or it could be 4. Then you know that, oh, this one is not rated high. So the one with the highest is the one that you're going to start with, all the way down like that. I don't know if that answered your question, Gabriela. Okay. I didn't
okay?
get any. Oh, sorry, Naomi. I kept saying Gabriela. Naomi, sorry. Naomi, I hope you got that. I'm sorry about that. That's why she was in. Okay, thank you. So for Ida, you said that if there's something you wish you knew before becoming a PM, or any advice. Okay, so I think one of the things that is different from when I started out as a PM is there's so many resources now. At the time when I started product management, there weren't so many resources. Internet wasn't what it is today. YouTube is uh, YouTube is like a university. And so one thing that I'll advise any beginner is you have to be curious. You need to actually um, make use of all the available resources that are there. Like I said, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to start with, because you have so many product leaders. I've suggested about three. If you check any of my past posts, I actually have one that I actually included quite a number of people that I think you should follow. So as a beginner, I think you need to be curious. As a beginner, you should be open to learning. There's a lot of resources, and a lot of them are free. There are some paid and there's some free. YouTube has so many things that you can leverage on. A lot of the tools that I mentioned as well, most of them have free versions you can play with, as well as they also have trainings on how to use them. So I think one thing I would always advise any new beginner is to ensure that you make use of all these opportunities and all these resources that are available. I didn't have access to so many of them. So I actually feel that, I mean, you guys are at a time when you can actually use all these resources and benefit from them. Thank you, Mahot. How do I handle burnout? Okay, for instance, earlier today, I had actually, so one thing I do is I actually prioritize my health on a daily basis. I start out by doing, for the days that time permits me in the morning, I exercise. But for days that I don't, I still catch up in the evening. I enjoy going for outdoor walks. One of the reasons why is that it actually gives me enough time, to enjoy nature and then to also be able to think through things as well. Time management is also very important to handle burnout for me. So I ensure that I have a good balanced time schedule for the things that I do. There are some time management things that I adopt. I like using the Pomodoro, meaning that, sometimes you just spend about 25 minutes on a task and then take a 5-minute break, depending on what I'm working on. And then also, I also like using the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule means that something that you can quickly achieve now that is not going to take so much time. I like doing that so that I can quickly tick off that item off my to-do list. So those are some things that I do. So time management, I prioritize health and wellness as well. They actually help to avoid burnout. And sleep, I also prioritize sleep as well. If you're tired, please rest, so that you're more refreshed when you come back. It actually allows you to find solutions to ideas. It also allows you to have fresh ideas as well. So when your team is not performing as expected, I think one of the things that is very important is to actually do a root cause analysis. You need to understand what the challenge is in terms of performance. You might start with doing a one-on-one with your team and to understand what the challenges might be, whether it's the individual, whether it's the platform, or whether it's the customer. So, that way you're able to address it from the very root. If it's the customers that are the challenge, then you want to know whether it's the individuals. Maybe someone mentioned burnout, maybe they're tired, they're overwhelmed in terms of work, in terms of maybe the target that they have been given, or maybe it's even the platform that you're using that is a challenge as well. So you want to know which one of these, and then you now start to address starting from there. I hope I've been able to answer all your questions. And if you have any other questions, my DM is open on LinkedIn. You can actually reach out to me, especially if you're not comfortable asking the question here or being called up. It happens sometimes. So you can just reach out to me personally as well. Meron just put a link to my LinkedIn on the chat. So you can just click on it and connect with me, follow me, and then also go over some of the resources that I have. If you have any questions or challenges, I'm open to supporting you with that. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you once again, Meron, for having me here this evening. I do hope that you benefited from this session. And thank you so much, everyone.